welcome to the OIC, otherwise known as the Omnipresent Information Connection podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Peterson.
And I'm the co-host, Noah Hansen. The Omnipresent Information Connection podcast is all about your world and your unique walk on this path called life. We present fascinating, life-changing information from around the world that has been validated. We also authenticate the information by providing you with links to where you can find out more about what we are talking about on our show. This podcast includes historically accurate, genuine facts that have helped shape our daily lives into what they are today. In today's episode, we will be talking about the importance and the symbolism of trees. So I'm very excited about this episode because I have always had a connection with nature. I feel I've always loved playing outside when I was a kid, and I've always had an eye for the beauty of nature for my entire life. Let's get right into it. What is the real meaning of trees? What is the real importance of trees, Kevin?
Thank you, Noah. What the tree of life represents. In this way, a tree of life is a symbol of a fresh start on life, positive energy, good health, and a bright future. As a symbol of immortality, a tree grows old, yet it bears seeds that contain its very essence, and in this way, the tree becomes immortal, as a symbol of growth and strength. Now, for your listeners, what does the tree of life mean spiritually? This represents the interconnected nature of all things in the universe, an eternal bonding of the physical realm we are rooted in, and in the spiritual realm we are reaching for. The tree of life serves as a reminder to our universal connection to the Mother Earth and our dependence on her to grow and flourish. Now, the most symbolic, the most beautiful part about a tree is that it never needs permission to grow, that it doesn't seek approval, that it doesn't need permission, and most importantly is that in a natural sense and state it recognizes what it needs to do and therefore branches out and just does it. Now, what makes a tree a tree? Well, first you have to have a seed well planted in a very fertile piece of soil. That's what gets everything in motion. And the seeds are ability, the cracking out, the breaking out of its own element to become something even bigger than itself, right?
Right, that's a biblical sort of interpretation. That's like a biblical symbolism of the fruit tree, bearing fruit.
Absolutely.
How your actions lead to results. And good actions lead to good results. Bad actions lead to bad fruit.
Absolutely. Now, we're on to sun and water and its absorption abilities and its power, right?
Yep. The tree by the running river.
Yep. You've got to be able to know when to absorb the right sun and water in order to be able to grow. Too much water causes too much damage. Too much sun causes too much damage. You have to have a balance and abilities of both of them in order for a tree to sustain life. Now, next is that when a tree starts to be able to grow, it has to have roots of being well grounded. The roots actually take the longest period of time to be able to branch out and manifest underground prior to the tree even coming up out of the ground, because it realizes it knows its own place and it has to be able to protect its environment prior to even breaking out, right?
Needs to integrate itself into the environment for its own protection.
Right. And so, therefore, there's growth through persistence. In a everyday waking scenario or situation, that the roots keep branching out, keep growing, keep developing, and at the very center of this seed is where it then starts to wiggle out of the earth and come through, the breaking through point, the breaking through moment, right?
That's right. This all seems like a pretty individualistic way of interpreting the symbolism of trees and how it has to do with what we can really learn in our personal lives about trees. And we'll get more into that. But I also wanted to mention that trees are also symbolic in groups of people, in social aspects, because a tree is very symbolic of an ancestral line because, the family tree. The trunk is just the main family line where they came from, down in the roots all the way down to the very, very deep past. And then each branch branching off of the trunk and then going into smaller branches and twigs and leaves can represent just the interconnectivity, all the different families coming from one major human family, which would be the trunk and the roots, you could say. You can get all sorts of symbolism from a tree and social aspects too.
Absolutely. And now, on to the next part is bark of protection. The tree automatically knows that in order to be able to weather any type of storm, it needs to be able to grow a shield of protection. And that's where the bark comes in. And the bark starts to be able to grow as the tree starts to be able to grow, to be able to not only be able to keep it well balanced, well founded, but also to be able to establish a protection point for it to be able to continuously grow beyond its expectations for that tree. Mm-hmm. Now, then you've got inside of there is the wood, and if you've ever cut down a tree, if you ever cut into a tree, you'd see these rings. And these rings are years and years and years and years and years of expanded growth and development, making it as strong as it possibly can be so that it can be able to be well rooted in its authenticity to be a tree for what you see today. The branches start to be able to branch out and give the tree balance and strength. Also, when it branches out with the balance and the strength, it's reaching out and it's reaching up. If you've seen any tree heading towards any sun, it will always lean where there's the most sun because it understands the value of sunlight in the form of protection, right?
Right, receiving that light from above.
Right. And so it naturally will bend its will to be able to go where it's most enlightened. Pretty powerful, right?
That is very powerful.
So, branches of balance and strength, of knowing when to branch out, is important. That's why we as human beings often communicate with multiple different people throughout the days, the weeks, and the months, and the year to be able to know when to branch out, when to be able to grow, when to develop, when to be able to do this, when to be able to do that. It's part of human nature, but what I'm trying to be able to give you as a, I see moment is that what we do in the human flesh is what a tree does naturally without permission, without other needed guidance, without needing to be counseled, without needing any other elements except for its known element, which is its growth potential, right?
Right, and it has self-healing properties and abilities. Let's talk a little bit about the healing properties that it has not only for itself but for the surrounding environment, because it gives out molecules in the air that actually have healing properties for different vapors and different molecules that actually enhance the animals that live in its immune system. It backs up the immune systems for the animals living in or on the tree.
So it builds and grows the immune systems for ladybugs and for butterflies,
right,
and for all these different insects, as well as the lizards or anything
right,
else.
Even birds and squirrels and things like that. There's healing properties literally surrounding the air of a tree and stuff that boosts your immune system. There'll be links in the description below on that.
Mm-hmm. And Noah, have you ever taken the time to be able to think why a bird perches on a tree?
I've never taken the time to think about why a bird perches on a tree.
It's the same thing as humans when they do their grounding. When you take off your socks and shoes and you go walk in lush green grass and get reconnected with the earth, birds and other animals do the same thing. It's their form of grounding, but on a tree. Then you have to understand is that when they touch the tree, when they hold on to the tree, they're literally receiving nutrients, receiving vital life-enhancing things from the tree.
Mm-hmm. And now we have also very well-known healing trees that we use in everyday life, some of us. You've got, tea tree oil is a very popular thing. We also have the fact that the willow tree had the chemical compound that we have got Advil from. And Advil used to be made completely out of willow tree bark. And it's a major painkiller.
Willow, you look at that.
So those are just two small examples of the many ways that we use trees and the substance of the tree itself as a healing modality in everyday life in our culture today.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just a lumber yard. A tree is more than just lumber. A tree has many different uses when it's still alive and in the ground.
Correct.
Communities of trees and forests, especially the inner forests where you're not near the outside, but you are in the very dense area of the forest where it's actually known to be cooler. The temperatures cool down in the deep forests. Walking through those areas, and the studies have been done that walking through these areas, especially in Japan, they even call it forest bathing, where it's a natural thing to the human body when we go in these well-forested areas, these areas just surrounded by trees, immersed in them, that you come out of that place feeling naturally better, nearly every time.
Oh, yeah, because it is the human equivalent to earthing,
That's right.
And so I have had personal experience with being able to be in a forest and be able to do earthing. And it's very important to be able to get reconnected to the earth so that you can feel more at peace and more whole as a person, because you are literally surrounded with other elements that can relate to you.
Mm-hmm. It's all about vibratory restoration.
Mm-hmm. And that's why a lot of people go camping. Psychologically, they're not even aware that that's why they're going camping, but that's why they're going camping. I mean, it's great to be able to take friends and family and relatives and acquaintances, but the bottom line is that the reason why camping is so important and why it's so popular is because of that fact, is that it's that earthing effect.
Mm-hmm. There's a study done that encompassed two different groups of people, and one of the groups was people who lived in the inner cities, and then the other group was people who lived in the countryside in the areas that are more tree surrounded. And what they found was certain chemical processes in these two different groups of people's brains worked differently, and the immune systems of the people living near trees versus the people in inner cities was naturally heightened, naturally better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So the inner cities, like being surrounded by all these sort of rough vibrations of man-made things and not really having much of nature to connect with, or at least not taking the time to connect with it when you can. Every city has parks that you can go to very simply and easily to be able to ground yourself. But if you're not doing that work, if you're living the busy bee life in the inner city, I would recommend, you need to have at least some practice in energy clearing, in clearing that dense city energy. It's now proven fact that when you take the time to do these things, it has positive benefits, no matter who you are.
Absolutely. Now, going on to the next is leaves of natural change. Do you know why, Noah, that the leaves change its colors?
Because of the seasons.
More importantly.
Losing moisture.
More importantly.
The sunlight is leaving, and that's why they start to change.
Correct. And because of that delicate balance, leaves fall with the falling sun. And
That's right. That's right.
And so a lot of us really get upset when we have to be able to rake up the leaves and all that sort of thing because fall is here and that it just clutters our yards.
Right.
But there is more grounding and more healing powers if you were to be able to walk amongst the leaves on the grass than to have picked them up and just have walked on the grass.
Yeah, how many of you people out there can say that walking on crinkling leaves in the fall time isn't a relaxing experience on some level? On top of that, the leaves that fall on the ground from the fall trees, losing their leaves, provide homes and lots of different environments for animals.
Yeah.
Essential environments.
Yeah, small critter safe havens.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And then the preparedness of growing up and being looked up to is the next thing of value when it comes to a tree. Being able to have the preparedness of mind, body, spirit, and soul to be looked up to. Because a tree doesn't ever say, look at me. It just grows naturally because it is.
And they've been inspiring awe in people ever since the dawn of time.
Now,
very cool.
Yeah, and the cutting into the removal of dead branches is very healthy for trees. And why is that?
Well, it's just like pruning any sort of plant, any bush or whatever, even your bonsai trees. It makes way for new growth, makes way for not getting tangled up in itself, you know.
Let me ask you a question, Noah. Have you ever cut a live branch and tried to burn it versus a dead branch and try to burn it?
Yeah. Doesn't work out too well.
For the live branch,
For the
right?
live branch, that's right.
That's right. Because you literally have to burn through all those different elements of healing powers to be able to get to the core, the wood, for it to be able to do what it needs to do, and that's just to burn.
Now, some people out there hearing that, they may not know what you mean by healing powers, but here's the thing. We now know, it's scientifically proven, that water has memory. Water holds on to the surrounding factors in its environment, and it takes on the properties of whatever it comes in contact with. Mm-hmm. That it doesn't matter whether there's even one molecule or no molecules of whatever it's rubbed off on. It takes on that memory. It holds that property of whatever it touched. So if you were to, let's say, drop a drop of wine in a cup of water, and then you dilute it to the point where it's now completely 100% water molecules, none of the wine is left in it, it will still have the properties of the memory of that wine. Correct. In a measurable way. We'd be able to see how that wine has rubbed off on that water that we've dropped it into. And that's just a sort of simple example, but this is scientifically proven now. The reason I bring this up is because the tree itself, having all that water, it's got gallons and gallons of water stored in an adult tree. That water now is taking on all the healing properties of the wood, the molecules, and everything that goes into what a tree is. And, you know, that includes, with the willow, includes the painkiller, the natural painkiller that is also very adept at preventing cancer, I might add.
Oh, yeah.
So if that says anything about how powerful, how healing a tree really can be with all that water stored in it, that water is an amplifier. It's a memory holder. It's a communicator. And it brings life. So these trees, not only do they hold and store this water and get healing properties because of it, but they clean out virtually whatever pollutant is in an environment, in the soil, in acid rain. Trees are the reason for that being cleaned out of our water systems and releasing that back up in the form of vapor into the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and Noah, have you ever spent time in a log cabin house?
Yeah, I've been. I was a camp counselor for one summer, so I've spent a lot of time in log cabin houses.
Mm-hmm. And how did you feel in a log cabin house versus a standard traditional house?
I love it. I love the humidity is the one thing that gets to me sometimes. It's often too humid. However, I love it. I think that the air being cooler is really nice. I think it still feels like I'm in nature, immersed in nature. It still the air is just different,
Yes, absolutely, because it's constantly living as you're living.
That's right. It's definitely air that feels more alive.
Correct. And that brings me up to the next point, is the complete chopping down and the rebuilding process that we do to trees, and what trees do for us is that trees, ever since they have come to life, have been able to then provide us human beings with protection, with fire, with all these different elements. Think of a baseball bat. You think about the Louisville Slugger, but it takes a special tree to be able to even make those. And so with all those elements at play is that trees really do affect us every day in every way. From the paper that you write on to the paper that you smoke. You have no idea, including the pencil that is in your hand writing down these ideas, right? That trees are everywhere, and everywhere there is new life, new growth, and new opportunities. So the tree in itself is a mother figure. It is a father figure. It is something worth looking up to, because that's the way God had created it in the first place, right?
That's right.
So, along with the protection, along with branching out, along with growing and developing, along with being able to be well-grounded and to be able to be well-founded within its abilities, natural abilities that don't require permission, all those can come to a beautiful completion point, and the bottom line outcomes are all of healing and restoration purposes.
I think the tree is very symbolic of the spiritual journey of humankind. The age-old tale of a human on the path to enlightenment. You get well-grounded. You have this trunk that stems up from the ground, from those roots already in place. And then you're constantly, for the rest of your life, reaching upward towards the sun, reaching up towards the light, being nourished by the light, and getting stronger and stronger, higher and higher, constantly, pretty much for all time.
Yep. And for many travelers in our past histories, often looked for the highest tree to be able to find a bearing, to be able to either go up into and to be able to scout around, or to be able to be underneath it for protection from the elements in its environment.
Mm-hmm.
All throughout life, trees have been there for us. Now it's time for us to be there for the trees.
I think so, too. I think that we've oppressed them and had a bit of a genocide here for too long.
Well, yeah, because you have to understand is that so many things commercially are made out of trees. If we could be able to restore the natural abilities within us, we can be able to then do two things. One is that the original founding paper was hemp.
That's right. So many uses for that plant.
Right?
So many that trees would not have to be used anymore for so many things.
Right? And not only that, but it is way more sustainable, cheaper, because you don't have the trucks that need to haul hemp You can literally bundle it together and put it into a machine.
That's right.
That would be able to create the work.
Yeah, in 6 to 9 months to grow a hemp plant, whereas trees, to get it to a lumber use, it takes good 10 years at least.
Right. And understand this, is that we've had hemp clothing, hemp paper, we've had hemp pens, pencils. There's so many products out of hemp. Now, I'm not promoting hemp. I'm not dispromoting hemp. But what I am doing is, on a historical level, being able to bring to your attention that we could be able to save a lot of taxpayers' dollars. We can save a lot of money in the U.S. economy by going back to what actually worked in the first place, and we can even perfect it even better than that.
There are so many uses for hemp. It even makes oil.
Absolutely.
It even makes plastics. It's insanely versatile. So, either way, whether you promote it or not, it's a good idea, I'd say. It's common sense even. However, for the longest time, we just haven't been utilizing it, but now it's finally being integrated. And I think for you investors out there, it's very, very solid investment, I'd say, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the CBD benefits alone are $1 billion industry now.
Helping millions of people out there.
Right? But again, I'm not promoting it. I'm not dispromoting it. All I'm simply saying on a historical level is that we need to, as growing Americans, find things that are more financially feasible so that we can be able to keep the oxygen-enriched communities going.
Am I correct in saying the Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper?
Correct. And why?
It lasts longer than regular paper.
More importantly, our founding fathers wanted to be able to have a living testament to their approvals of the Declaration of Independence. And there was no other paper at that time that could sustain the physical signing and writing of the Declaration of Independence better than hemp.
Right.
And
they
then,
would not have chosen... they had to choose the best of the best paper for that,
Right. And then the very first Bible that was ever mass-produced was also made out of hemp as well.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And that was in Asia, and then Malaysia, and then the Himalayas, and then it just grew from there. But then we have departed, biblically, from hemp paper and Bibles to be able to get these really nice satin gold touches for our Bibles to be able to glorify the Bible and not the Word. So, the bottom line is that we can save countless hundreds of thousands of dollars being able to bring hemp back into school systems, to be able to bring them into the grade schools, into the high schools, and the middle schools. We can be able to do so many positive, life-changing things with just one product that it would revolutionize our whole entire financial cost of being able to send our children to school.
Not only that, but you can get ebooks instead of regular paper books, too. We've mentioned that in a podcast before.
Absolutely. So, again, I'm just simply bringing historical facts to life. And the bottom line is that if we were able to be able to do it back in the day, why can't we restore that natural way in every way, and to be able to bring the cost down, to be able to make it not only feasible, not only livable, but financially rewarding for all of us and all people across the world, so that we can be able to reduce the financial cost and burdens of being able to educate ourselves today.
In the next episode, we'll be talking more about the wisdom, the intelligence, and even the self-awareness of trees. We'll be talking about the healing properties and more specifically on their portrayal in some of our most cherished traditions, in some of the most spiritual texts that we have access to now in the present day, and also some more scientific evidence of the healing properties of trees and how trees really do have such a codependent relationship with humanity that we should really be giving them a much larger amount of respect than we do, I think, right now. And don't forget our Patreon page, where you're able to contribute a dollar amount every month of whatever you choose to help us out in all the pursuits, the future endeavors, and the quality content that we'll be bringing you in the years to come.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.